That's funny. All right. Can you hear me well? Oh, I forgot to bring my headphones again.
Yours, I think, are on the bed or something. Just get them real quick. We'll just quickly setting up here to begin speaking on the subjects. How is everyone doing, by the way? Welcome all. We're going to wait for some homies to jump in here before we get started. And then we're going to just cut this part off later for the actual part that's going to get uploaded to the Buzzsprout and YouTube. Bloopers, you're right. We should start recording these and putting it in the and putting them in the background for their look on the green chair. Maybe they're somewhere over there. Just look around. I saw them just like a couple of minutes ago or something. They're around. Just look through stuff. Don't be lazy. Be diligent. If you want, we could do it without you having headphones. It's just gonna be worse for you to. Yeah. That's that OnlyFans content right there. Oh, am I live on the wrong channel? Oh, no, wait. I'm streaming.
Oh, did you?
I didn't stream. There you go. All right. Yeah, I'm doing it now. We're just posting a couple messages, letting people know we're live, and we'll get started.
Yes, please. All right. Can you hear me well? Do I sound good?
Yeah, you sound fine.
Ooh, perfect. You do sound a little bit loud. Oh, maybe it's just on my headphones though.
Yeah, to me, you sound loud though.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
yeah, because I think the soundboard splits us up differently or whatever.
I see. Okay, perfect. And I sound right about fine here, right? Yeah. About a fist away.
Yeah, you could. I put the gain up from the last time we did it, so you can actually talk a bit more chill, and it'll still pick you up just fine.
All right, that sounds good. That sounds good.
So okay. Let me tell the quality here on the stream to chill.
I wish we didn't have the MCA, man. We can put the song that we were just filming.
I know, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, I'm going to do the official intro and we'll get started, okay?
Got it.
All right. Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of the Co-op Syndicate. I'm your co-host, Michael C. Moore.
And I'm your other co-host, Jordan G. Marcos.
And today, we're going to be talking about what makes a co-op game good. First and foremost, before we get right into the topic, we are going to introduce a new segment to the show where we cover recent, current events that has to do with gaming. So we're going to do that first. Some topics that I would like to discuss with you guys that I feel like... Oops. Yeah, your microphone's actually getting quite a bit of bleed there. You might want to mute when you're not talking.
Okay.
Well. Yeah, and I'll put your noise gate up a little bit. So just make sure that it's picking you up there. But there you go. So, like I said, we're going to introduce a new topic or a new segment to the show where we cover current events. And some of the things that I think we're going to want to talk about is the whole debacle that's going on with Cyberpunk 2077, which I personally had some near and dear experiences with. And also, we're going to be talking about other things that are going on, such as the whole debacle with Nintendo and Smash and, Sephiroth being in Smash and all that, and anything else that Jordan might want to contribute as well. What's up with you, man? What have you been hearing with gaming this past week?
Right, so I guess since you spoke about Cyberpunk 2077, it's best to start with that. It's very, very sad to see a game like Cyberpunk fail the way it has. I mean, it hasn't necessarily failed. They did say it's been like a profit and sort of like a win for them. With the release, they made all their profit day one. All the marketing, any extra additional costs they've made, they've been able to make it back. But it's just been difficult, I guess, to see like such a big and renowned company that everyone revered as, the prime example of what a gaming company should be, to just fall so far from its graces.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, man. It is especially rough because I feel like, you know, they earned a certain reputation with themselves with the Witcher games and stuff like that. But you know, to add on to what you were saying there, it's actually interesting because I've heard the opposite. Like I heard originally reports that oh my god, I keep saying Co-op Syndicate. I guess we've been talking so much about the brand that it stayed in my mind.
The Co-op Syndicate.
Yeah, but so what I was gonna say was that Cyberpunk 2077, while it was reportedly doing well when it first came out, I actually heard now that they're like they're in danger, basically. You know, obviously news is broken everywhere that Cyberpunk 2077 has basically been unplayable for the majority of people that played it. You know, yeah, people with like top 1% PCs, now that there's been like hot fixes and stuff, have been able to enjoy it and stuff. For the most part, there's still a lot of people that experience like a lot of game-breaking glitches and all that. But yeah, their stock price has actually plummeted this week, like really bad. And also they were doing like a conference where essentially the developers, which are really good people, they confronted CD Projekt Red management over their decisions to try to push the game out earlier than they should have, because apparently they had these really unreasonable deadlines that they were trying to meet because of investors and stuff. So that's pretty much what's going on with that. I don't know, man. It sounds like it's pretty rough. Sounds like it's going.
Yeah, like I said, it's a pretty interesting situation. CD Projekt Red is extremely like they are revered as the top or one of the top companies within the gaming industry, just like Rockstar Games, Rockstar North, I believe, with GTA. It's watching them fall from grace has been a little tough. I was one of those people that always revered them as the high end of quality when it comes to gaming, and they deserve the credit for what it was. They made Witcher 3, which is one of the better titles in the entire gaming industry, specifically Gen 8 with the PS4 and Xbox One. I think the watching Cyberpunk perform so poorly is what's getting people off. What's getting them to kind of feel a little bit more hurt by this change, because there's all these companies. There's many companies throughout the year that have been having problems. Every company has had like a issue where they're releasing games a little broken and all that. But what Cyberpunk did, like to go that far and hide the old gen or the Gen 8 versions from reviews so that people would kind of be tricked. That's just, they went so far out of the way to, it just feels malicious. Like they were intentionally trying to screw over the fan base that was waiting and hyping up this game for them while they were trying to make a profit at the same time. And all this difficulty, I guess, is what really affected them from making such a good game. You know, as you mentioned, they released early. They weren't ready to release, but I want to make sure that people understand that all this stuff has been there from before. When I got Witcher 3, the game was a little broken and had some problems. I had to actually sit down and wait a month or two for a couple patches to come in for the full game to be playable to me, especially me as a person who likes to go out and 100% the game. I don't know if you want to have some input with that and your experience of Cyberpunk.
Yeah, so I think with Witcher and stuff, it's a little bit different simply because of the fact that, you know, when the Witcher came out, they really didn't make any promises outside of the fact that it was going to be like a good RPG. They were going to try to honor the legacy of Witcher and just, you know, make it a good game for fans and all that. For Cyberpunk 2077, they promised a lot of features that weren't there. I heard, for example, one of the things they promised was branching interactions with dialogue, which apparently most of them don't even work, or they don't really actually lead to any different outcomes in the narrative. Apparently, there was supposed to be a function where you could map like all your abilities and stuff all differently, and then most of the abilities don't even really like, you know, do much. So there's already a bunch of missing features. Outside of just the missing features, the game's just completely busted. You know, there's people that can't complete certain quests because there's stuff that it just breaks. But I do want to quickly highlight, though, something very important was their stock, what's going on with their stock, so that you guys could actually see the consequences of them trying to shortchange their fans. If you actually look, I pulled it up here on Google, the market summary for CD Projekt Red. If you look at the year to date, they were doing, they were averaging out. They were kind of climbing since summer of 2020, hitting like what it seems to be an all-time high for them, maybe back at the end of summer in August. And then they were doing pretty decent, and then you have the release of Cyberpunk 2077, Cyberpunk 2077. You see that the stock was rising, and then pretty much after the news broke of how broken the game was, it's like reaching an all-time low, Like right before it plummeted, it was at $31 a share. Now it's down to $18.50. So that's pretty bad, man. And I'm sure it's only going to get worse now that the refunds are going through from both Microsoft and Sony and stuff. So what do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, refunds for them has always been a thing. That even with Witcher 3, for the people that felt kind of burned at some of the glitches that released, especially with frame drops on certain islands that you'd explore, they have always offered refunds. Now this is going to be this one's a specific moment in gaming because it's also the end of 2020 is the most hyped game probably of the year, aside from the next gen console. Trying out next gen console games. And with the not to get too far into the news, but just the year has been a bit poor with the ongoing pandemic. So for people to actually wait on this game for so long and then just have such a poor experience is a little not only surprising but also hurtful, I guess, from the fans that have been waiting for this game for so long. Now, Cyberpunk 2077 is made by CD Projekt Red. CD Projekt Red has always been a very forthcoming company, to say. I guess that's the best way I could say it. That they're always pretty good about keeping up with fans, DLCs, updates, patching.
You basically think like they're pretty honest, like they're typically good guys.
Yeah, exactly. They've always been these good guys, which is why they've been so revered in the industry as the prime example of what a gaming company should try to be. They've always been honest. They've always updated when necessary. They've stuck out with Witcher 3 until it was the best game that it could possibly be, despite the fact that they didn't need to. In most companies, they just drop their games after like 6 months to a year to start the next one, unless it's a live service game where they're making money off it. They gave out 16 free DLCs during Witcher 3, and they're gonna do the same thing with this game as well. It's just the way it released.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you too. I think the management really needs to be punished for the bad decisions that they made for this game. Honestly, I think that most of the people at CD Projekt Red tend to be pretty honest. They're good people, so hopefully they just really try hard to make up for the smear that just got put on their company for this game, and hopefully we can move forward and they don't let it happen again. I think they're one of the people that are going to learn from this mistake and come out of it. But this isn't a Cyberpunk 2077 podcast, so I think we pretty much did a good job of covering it. If anything happens between here and the next episode, we'll be sure to let you guys know. In other news, go ahead.
Yeah. So then, the closing comment I want to put in just to put in my piece of it. I feel like because they were always so revered, they've never really had a moment where anybody directly accused them of something bad, that they kind of crapped out on their decisions and how to react towards the release of Cyberpunk in terms of. And I know Michael feels bad about it too, that they were hiding, literally, like telling reviewers not to show gameplay of Gen 8 so that the game wouldn't look so bad in reviews, and that's just wrong. They should have been honest from the beginning. They were honest the entire time. The fact that they decided to lie in this last minute, it shows that they thought on their feet, but they weren't thinking with their head straight, like on straight. They just went in there and did what they could. Yeah,
they panicked pretty much, and they tried to basically do better by themselves, but at the expense of their fans and customers, which is ultimately the worst thing you could do.
I definitely see the game to come around and being the best that it could be next year, though, especially when they get around the next gen and they patch out most of the problems of the game. Unlike other live service games, specifically, I just wanted to say that compared to Destiny and other games that have failed day one, this game, Cyberpunk 27, does have a complete story. It does have complete mechanics. It does have complete missions and an actual dedication to what the experience is trying to be. So the only thing they have to remove is the bugs. And when they do that, unlike those other games that came out incomplete, this game will have all the stuff already there within the game. So all they need to do is remove those problems, and it'll be set.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. In happier news, Sephiroth finally in Smash Ultimate. I actually got my hands on him yesterday. I personally think completely sexy. Like, I love playing him. He looks good. So, and he just ultimately, like, I was trying to think, I wonder, does Cloud, I don't remember Cloud feeling this good. And I tried him and I was like, nah, he's kind of a scrub compared to Sephiroth.
Yeah, we got a sassy man with long hair and pectorals.
Yeah, dude, like, honestly, the best part is just, like, the side of his sword, if you know what I mean. Yeah, no, I'm saying literally the size of his sword, but, like, I don't know. They just, it feels nice to play him. I don't know how many of you guys have gotten your hands on it or not, but if you're a big fan of Smash and you've always wanted to see Sephiroth in a game, like, outside of Final Fantasy, I would say definitely pick him up. I think he's definitely good DLC. Have you seen any of, like, you saw gameplay from him or whatever from when Sakurai announced him, right?
Right, and actually, this is actually a good question for you as well, because you're a big Smash fan, and you're also you enjoy a lot of fighting games. Just for fans, you guys know, Mike and I used to play a lot of Street Fighter when we were kids. I kind of dropped the fighting games, but he kind of kept it going, and he's very good at learning mechanics and studying, what some of the pro players do to incorporate into his fighting styles. But let me ask you something. You're actually main Ganon, or is Ganondorf is one of your mains in Smash currently. So how do you feel about some of the movesets that Sephiroth has?
So, okay, that's actually pretty interesting. Anyone who like plays Smash competitively, you'll typically be watching tier lists, and you'll be getting opinions from the pros and all that, so you kind of know where your character stands among the cast of characters, right? Now, obviously, tier lists are kind of bullshit for anyone who's not like a top 1% player, because, like, let's say if I've mastered the fundamentals of Smash and I know how to play Ganon, and then you're a complete noob at Smash, I could probably ruin your life and just, like, kill you in 3 shots and that's it. However, once you start getting to the upper echelons of, like, the gaming, where, like, the competition's pretty even, and maybe there's less and less gaps in your knowledge, then that's when you start seeing the difference in the characters ultimately, like how Ganon is basically considered non-viable due to his super poor recovery. That's really what makes him non-viable, because for the most part, at least, his attacks, if he hits you a couple times, you're dead. But the fact that, like, he really can only come back to the stage like one of 2 ways, it makes him really easy to read and it's just easy to punish. And then obviously his attacks are slow, so if you know what his setups are and all that, he just gets countered. Now, to link that back to Sephiroth, I feel like I'm going to pick up Sephiroth now, because not only do I think he's, like, super cool, like, I always thought, my first interaction with Sephiroth was from Kingdom Hearts 1 when I found him as a secret boss. I actually didn't play Final Fantasy 7 because I'm not a big guy for turn-taking RPGs. And I always thought he was super cool. And then I picked him up, and I feel like his playstyle is kind of a bit like Ganon's, in the sense of, like, he has attacks that are a little slower. He has armor on some of his attacks, and they're far-reaching. But Sephiroth's attacks are even further reaching than Ganon's, and he's way faster. So he really makes up for the lacks that Ganondorf has. He's actually has really good recovery too.
So let me ask you this. I know I mentioned it to you before. You might have forgotten. Have you seen the Smash challenge that they've had recently? Have you been able to partake in it? Because I know that if you beat the challenge, you could actually get Sephiroth today and not have to wait the full week.
Oh yeah, dude. But I'm a bit of a bitch. I'm not gonna lie. I just did it on easy because I didn't know if it was only going to give me 1 try, or I didn't look at the news in terms of that because I didn't really want spoilers for what the challenge was. So I just did it on easy, got it done, and then I actually unlocked him yesterday. So maybe if you guys are interested, we could actually show you some gameplay with that either later or for the next episode or whatever. But I think Sephiroth is crisp Smash character right there.
All right, but so then you have played him, and give us a bit of your experience. Like, what did you feel while you were playing as Sephiroth?
Well, he definitely felt like a boss character in terms of, like, his moveset feeling really, like, powerful and cool. For any of you guys who saw the trailer, obviously he has, like, his main B button is Flare. He could charge it up to Mega Flare and Giga Flare. It's a lot of damage, and there's actually some kill confirms you could do with Giga Flare. Like if you land the fully charged one, you could just do a forward smash, and if you're at the edge of the arena, that'll be already enough to just kill you outright, which is a little bit of that like Ganondorf-like power that I was referring to. And then his side B is actually really great too, because what it does is that he like snaps and he puts like a little darkness orb around you that just circles you, and I think it circles you for about 5 seconds before it collapses in on you. So like it'll actually proactively attack you, and so he could charge that attack to put more orbs on you, up till 5 of them, and they do quite a bit of damage. I'm not exactly sure what the exact number is, but they do a lot of damage, and so a lot of his moves also have a lot of shield break. So if you land that on someone and then you force them to shield to try to block those, and then you block those, your shield gets left super small, then you could break your shield with any other attack. It's basically a free kill. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he develops. I don't know if he's going to be top tier, because one thing that's bad about him is that he has a lot of lag. You know, his attacks don't come out instantly. A lot of the times, you know, they're powerful, more slower attacks. But he has armor, good air attacks to make up for it. Obviously, great reach because his sword's massive. So we'll see what the pros end up doing with him. For now, though, I'm going to play as him. I think he's good.
I'll just stick with Little Mac, guys. I'm all about the little guys. I think Little Mac is the best.
This guy gets clapped every single time he picks him.
That's fine. I'm not a big fighting game guy, but I love Little Mac. I think for him, he's like the most fun I could have in a game. Maybe I might pick up Sephiroth for a bit just to have fun, but I think Little Mac's my character forever.
Hey man, you know, underdogs. Everyone's got to love an underdog, and when it comes to Smash Ultimate, Little Mac is definitely an underdog. Did you know he was actually more powerful when they first introduced him in, what was the one before Ultimate?
I think I might have just ooh, you got me there. Melee, no.
Okay, it goes Melee, Brawl, and then there was one after Brawl that was for the Wii U, but I never played that one, so I forgot the name of it.
I think it might have just been called Smash Brothers U.
Actually, no, I think it's Smash 4. I think people just refer to it as Smash 4.
Yeah, because I think the title is so simple as Smash Brothers U.
Yeah, so Lil Mac was actually good in Smash 4, but you know, outside of that, enough of Smash. One quick note though, I want to say Nintendo, for those of you who didn't know, Nintendo continues to also plunge their reputation right into the ground, right alongside CD Projekt Red, as they've canceled yet another Smash event, but this time it's worse because it's not Melee. It wasn't like it was a Melee event, or that they were using some sketchy software to do a tournament or anything. It was legitimately a Smash Ultimate event that was supposed to be for colleges and stuff, to try to get like college students and high school students into esports. And it was basically a grassroots movement where they raised, I think it was something like $10 million or something, to help kids get into esports if they wanted to play Smash Ultimate and all that. And Nintendo said, nope, we actually have plans to do that. Like, you know, they've said 1,000 times for previous events, and then they straight up told them it's not happening.
Yeah, Nintendo has always kind of been very protective of their IPs, with respect. I mean, it's up to them to guide how they want, or to write the story on how they want their IPs to be perceived by the world, and what they want to get into and what they don't want to. They just want to control the narrative. It's technically their right, but I feel as though while they've been doing this, they've maintained the culture of good game development, but not necessarily the culture of what it means to the community.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's definitely within their legal right to do so. That's right.
So I've noticed that over time, like over the many years, like as Nintendo's begun to crack down, they were the first ones to start striking down YouTubers and content creators over their games. Like, hey, you can't just use the IP to do this. You can't just create mods.
Well, let's say they were one of the first. We don't know if they were legitimately the first. We don't want to misrepresent them either. But for sure, I know for a fact they were always one of the first people that always like did copyright strikes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess to correct myself, I'd say they're the first big company that's like, wow, like what, you're going that far to strike down a content creator. It's kind of hard to pinpoint because maybe they felt like their IP was being shown in a way that wasn't respecting what they created. But at the same time, they kind of forgotten too that why they make the games. They make the games for the players, for the community, so that they can enjoy it. And I mean, the community is the most important part. That's what drives the spirit of the games forward. They drive forward. You know, Mario being the mascot of Nintendo. They are the ones that say Zelda, you know, is the best thing ever. Content creators promote these games for them, so it's, in a way, they have to kind of respect that and find a way, like a middle ground, I believe, where they can kind of let people create their own thing, but at the same time, you know, kind of have like their own presence within it. Kind of like how Bungie, I think Bungie Day was more of like a community, or Destiny Guardian Con. There you go. To be more specific, Guardian Con specifically is a community event. But rather than being shut down by Bungie, what they did is that they just participated in it and allowed them to grow it into something bigger, so that the entire community can enjoy it. And I think that's what Nintendo needs to do. They need to put in their piece to help out the community grow.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, man. That's a bit ultimately the big thing about letting fans get an IP, and as long as they're not doing something where it's obviously like taking advantage of your company or putting it in a bad light, ultimately it's just free publicity. And if you allow your fans to enjoy your IPs and stuff outside of just how you originally intended for them to be used, ultimately, you know, people are just going to want to support you more. They're going to want to buy your stuff more. They'll go to events that maybe you could be a part of and find a way to monetize that too, rather than just, you know, being more restrictive, that you're not making as much money, you're not having as much publicity, and then people are also going to have a poor public opinion of you. Just real quick, hey there, Emerald. So Emerald on Twitch chat says he's got Popeyes. Enjoy that Popeyes, my man. It's pretty good. Let me know what you ended up getting in the chat, man. If I was to guess, I peg you as possibly a biscuits type of guy, right? Maybe some mashed potatoes and gravies. I don't know. You got to let me know.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to do the exact same intro for him. Well, close to it. For Emerald, what's up, man? Thanks for showing up. So yeah, you pretty much make a point, and I'm gonna get in here with my own opinion and start off by saying Nintendo's pretty great, and I didn't really look into Legend of Zelda until Mike paraded the game in front of me. Ocarina of Time was my first, and I think that's how the experience should always go. You should always start with Ocarina, the great games, I guess is what I want to say. But I didn't really think about buying a shirt until I saw a YouTuber wearing like this really awesome Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild shirt. I'm a pretty big guy on gaming shirts. I'm sure you guys, if you've seen some of the old episodes or the older episodes, you've seen me within I think Assassin's Creed Black Flag shirt and a Gears of War shirt at one point. So I actually wanted to go out and get a Zelda shirt because that content creator had it, and he was making Nintendo content. I think that video might have been taken down. I don't remember the exact name of the video because, like I said, I watched it I didn't say it. I watched it like 8 years ago. But the point is, I didn't get inspired to buying Nintendo merch until I saw that YouTuber, and that's the most important thing that Nintendo needs to realize. It's that it's all about the community. We create these experiences to be bigger than what these experiences normally are. You know, a game's just a game until people begin to believe in the story, believe in the world, and really take it forward as a medium to really enjoy their experience. So
yeah, no, I completely agree with you. So that pretty much does it for our current event segment. I think that last conversation we actually had was a perfect segue into what the main topic of today's podcast is going to be, and that is what makes a good co-op game. And that's actually interesting because you brought up Zelda, and that actually reminded me, one of the weirdest or like most like unusual co-op games I ever saw, which I thought was a cool idea, and I was kind of sad that it was never capitalized on again, was Four Swords, like Legend of Zelda Four Swords. Did you ever hear about that one?
Yeah, I did. But like I said in I don't think I've mentioned in a previous podcast episode. But Nintendo has this weird thing where they kind of it's not weird, it's understandable that they separate all their games through all the generations of consoles because their consoles aren't necessarily made to stream in or cloud game like Xbox and PlayStation. So you'd have to literally go out of your way and buy every single console to play all of their games. I never really played this one, and I don't really feel like going back to the Game Boy Color at this point. Maybe I'm too pampered with the PS5's extremely fast loading and graphics and all that. But I did hear about it, and I know that on the 3DS they actually have another co-op game, which is a 3-player co-op game where you kind of create your own Link, and you go off and do like little puzzle adventures, but it's not fully open world like this game, like Four Swords Adventures.
Gotcha. So yeah, actually I'm going to go ahead and show a video of some gameplay so that way people who who've never seen it before can actually get to see it. But speaking on what gives a co-op game, what makes a co-op game good, man, I'm actually surprised that Nintendo didn't press this like specific idea a little bit more, because Zelda's obviously one of their biggest IPs that they ever came up with. They continue to make video games for it now, and it tends to be one of their best sellers or their better sellers for right now. And I'm just looking at this as like, wow, man, that's actually pretty cool. Why haven't they continued this? Personally, just from what you're seeing, do you think this has the makings of a good co-op game? Like, I see that it has almost everything. Obviously, it gives you the freedom to do whatever you want as 4 individual players. All the adventuring that you'd expect from a Legend of Zelda is present. You could play with your buddies, obviously, depending on how you want to do so. I think if this is on the DS or the 3DS, you'd have to do it in person or something, maybe, or be near each other to actually play. But look how cool this is, man. It captures the magic of the original Zelda games, and you get to share it with your buddies.
Yeah, I think Nintendo's always been pretty good at making a good game, and I think, just to quote Miyamoto, a game's normally bad. I forget the exact quote. I don't know if you want to look it up real quick, but a game's normally bad. If it's bad, then just delay it until it gets better. Because the longer you take developing it, the better chances it has of improving. I think that's what he was trying to say in the quote. We're gonna look it up now. I'm sorry, I forgot it. But I think any idea is good as long as. Oh, there you go. That's the quote right there. It's. Hold on a second. We're gonna transition the screen. Yep. So just so for those that are seeing, a delayed game is eventually good. A bad game is bad forever. So he's trying to say that the longer you take in developing a game, the better the chances it has of being a good game, because you can fix or work out the problems you have over time. Now the thing, however, is that it's a double-edged sword, because we see with Cyberpunk 2077, it got delayed like 2 years straight. They did all these delays like last minute, and it still ended up being a mess.
Yeah, they should have stuck to the original deadline they said, which is where it was ready. But I think ultimately the management let themselves get pressured by not only fans, but also investors and stuff, which obviously just ended up coming back and biting them in the butt. But I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, but like I was saying, Nintendo has a tendency to really take ideas, and even if it's not the best idea, at the very worst, they still have a good game. And I think that's what I want to point out. Like, Four Swords is a really out there idea that really changes what Zelda means by having it a 4-player, making it a 4-player adventure, or changing the core of Zelda. And with that change, they still ended up making a pretty decent game. Like, it wasn't maybe a hit because a lot of people maybe feel that waiting for your friends to solve a puzzle or something can detract from the experience. Since Zelda's always been a single player experience, but it doesn't mean that they made a bad choice or a bad idea. It just means that it wasn't as enjoyed for the franchise as it would have for another game.
Yeah. So yeah, I completely agree with that. And something you said that was interesting there was how they took Legend of Zelda, which was traditionally, one thing, and then they pretty much completely made it something else. Do you think personally that would be that could actually potentially be like a good recipe for developing better co-op titles, like getting, like, not even necessarily making something new that's specifically co-op, but maybe getting something that already exists in a certain way and then expanding upon it as a co-op game?
Ultimately, yes. Anything to quote, to go off on the quote again, anything that has its time put into it and the effort, it can really grow into something good. I've always seen, as a big gamer and also like a backlog type of guy that has like an infinite backlog at this point, never ending backlog. I've played many games that didn't hit the mark in their time. But I've noticed that the ideas that were present, like, I could feel what the developers are going for, and I could understand how this could be something that's fun, because I always try to see the bigger picture and what fans enjoy of those games or people. But ultimately, it all comes down to this: if your game comes out buggy, if it comes out with glitches, if it comes out incomplete, if you can clearly tell that it didn't bring the entire idea together, that's what makes the game bad. Because I've seen games that have released with bugs and very, very bad frame rate, but like the entire story and gameplay is there to really show and demonstrate that it did have a good idea. It's just that they let it go. Now it could be a number of things: developers quitting, developers feel creators behind the game feeling tired, and as Mike was saying, investors with Cyberpunk that pushed the game in the wrong direction, feeling rushed. All that stuff, affects the development cycle. And these are all things I always try to take into account when I try out a new game that maybe performs poorly. Not to excuse Cyberpunk, but I'm just saying there's a lot of hidden gems that people have missed out on because of that experience. And it kind of sucks,
Well, yeah, but you're losing me a little bit here. Ultimately, I was just wondering. So you think as long as basically you stick to like a good development, you could basically end up turning any idea like co-op well, as long as they actually think it out and plan it a little bit better.
Right. I always think that any idea. What I'm trying to say is generally, I think any idea is a good idea as long as it's fully like brought to the table and it's expanded upon. I know GTA 5, a long running game that's lived now. It's still relevant to this day to an extent. Brought heists to the multiplayer in 2015. Yeah, 2015. And even though the heists are quite simple, sometimes they still found a way to fully bring to attention each objective that a player would go through. So each player has something to do the entire time. It's not like a regular shooter where everybody just gets dropped into arena and they all just shoot in their own direction. No, it's each of us have our own objective during the heist and also shoot in our own directions, and then we can actually drive around the open. So they really,
it's like a layered experience, is what you're saying,
right? They went far enough to make sure that each player feels like they're doing something, contributing to the experience, while at the same time entertaining all four players. So they grabbed a game that's generally just a single player open world game and just took it in a completely different direction with the online, with the co-op and all that, and incorporated it into the core system of what GTA is. And that's why I believe that if it's done right, it can be a good idea.
Well, you know what? That's actually pretty true. I always thought that one of the hardest things that would be possible to develop is an open world co-op game. So it's actually really interesting that Grand Theft Auto 5 actually managed to do that. And I think it's reminiscent of the fact of why that game is so successful and why Rockstar is, so heavily regarded as one of the best developers. That's actually pretty crazy if you think about it, because one thing is to design. It's already, in my opinion, pretty hard to develop such an open world for a game and try to make it feel interesting. So the fact that they went ahead and did that for multiple players interacting cooperatively within a space is actually really insane. And on top of that, they also added player versus player interactions as well. So that's just crazy. It's almost like they just ended up building an actual world within their game.
Yeah, I mean, GTA has its own special sauce with that. As a matter of fact, the fact that you mentioned it as a world, it literally does feel like a world. I mean, you can literally start up your own logistics company with the game, which is hilarious, in my opinion, that they went that far to actually animate you sitting on a computer and buying products and then selling them.
Can you cooperate, like making a logistics company work?
Yeah, there's actually a system where the main player can become a CEO player, and then his friends can be VIPs within the business and do like the more employee driven sections of a business, which is like taking products and selling them, moving them around the city and completing, A to B transfers with trucks and whatnot, while the president or CEO of the company is actually running things from a computer trying to set the business.
That's actually pretty crazy, man. That almost sounds like you could set up a real world economy like revolving around GTA 5 or something. Kind of like how some MMORPGs have items that have sold for real world money in real life. It almost sounds like if you were smart about it somehow, if maybe you actually found a way to control some sort of a resource or material inside Grand Theft Auto 5, you could actually end up finding a way to actually make money off of it almost. I'm not sure. I don't play GTA Online, so if I'm wrong, correct me, but it almost sounds like you could get to that level with it.
It's definitely there, but again, it's all siloed off experience within missions and specific instanced moments within the game. It's nothing like a game like Warframe, where you literally go into like an actual store where players are literally selling to you game loot for real world money converted to platinum. So it's not like that, but it's just kind of funny how they emulated what it would feel like. And actually, like having worked in a logistics company myself, I find it funny that that GTA actually incorporated a lot of real life systems that I learned from working in logistics within the game. So it's like I can actually relate to it in a way. But going back off to the co-op, I digress with that. If it's done right, it can be fun. It could be a great experience, and it only adds value to a game. But again, it needs to be done in a certain way. It can't just be a co-op game where it's only the co-op experience, and it can't just be an open world experience with some co-op mechanics.
Is Grand Theft Auto the only open world game that ever attempted co-op, or has there been some less like more lackluster examples?
Oh, I know there's definitely lackluster examples. We got Assassin's Creed Unity, which brought co-op missions, but they drop you into the open world-ish area to kind of explore with your friends. There's also the Far Cry games. I think every game since Far Cry 4 has had Far Cry 3 had a official co-op campaign, but Far Cry 4 and almost every Far Cry after that has literally had both players dropped into the open world to do everything but the story missions, I believe, cooperatively. So you can go and take down all the outposts and take down specific objectives or hunt together, that sort of stuff. So there are other games that have definitely tried it before. It does exist.
Oh, okay, interesting. So Unity was botched. Was there anything particularly bad about it? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem with Unity is it just came out pretty broken. Again, the Cyberpunk issue. The game was released unfinished. It had glitches, this and that, left and right.
Is it still like? Is it playable now, or is it? What is the problem? Do the game's problems go beyond just like its buggy release? Is there like problems with gameplay and stuff, or is it like, oh, it's fixed and now it's playable and it's fun?
Honestly, I think I beat Unity a few months well after they released it and updated it, and I still experienced a couple of glitches. It might not be as bad, but I know definitely that the co-op experience was heavily glitched with a lot of lag, and I think it was because it's a peer-to-peer game. You know how peer-to-peer games tend to perform. But Ubisoft, I don't want to hate on the company, but that's the kind of thing I was telling you about. Like, just to touch on it real quick, Cyberpunk is backed by CD Projekt Red, and I know at one point they're gonna realize what they did wrong. They're gonna make up for it. Ubisoft doesn't. They really just leave their games most of the time pretty busted. I mean, a good example of them not supporting the games is how specifically Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which came out after Unity, is not supported on next gen consoles, but Unity, which came out before, is supported on next gen consoles and backwards compatibility, specifically on the PS5, which doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. That's just again, I digress. That's just me ranting on the company. Going back to co-op experiences, there's definitely some games that really incorporate it. But what I want to point out too is like co-op games should incorporate the mechanics and not make you feel like that's the only type of experience. I think maybe I'm just going off into another topic. But anyways, let's try and go ahead and get on with the first couple of things, so we kind of explain what we're going to talk about with co-op. But I think I'm just ranting right now at this point, so I need to take a minute.
No, we were talking about. You honestly didn't even mention it in like the outline that you came up with for today's episode, but it was interesting that we ended up there was open world co-op, because I feel like strangely enough we don't see enough of that. Now I think there's a couple of titles that are being planned that are going to revolve around that, kind of like the Arkham game that's going to come out where you play as like the Bat Family, and they have the one also Suicide Squad, where if you hadn't seen the trailer yet, you know, you're ultimately going to fight like an evil or brainwashed version of Superman that's being controlled by, what's my man's?
You mean Brainiac?
Yeah, Brainiac. Yeah, Brainiac, that guy. So, my bad. Yeah, so, you know, he's being controlled by Brainiac or whatever. So, hopefully we see a bigger expansion of that co-op genre soon, and hopefully the games are good. Because I get a very, very bad games as a service Destiny vibe coming from them already. Like, we get it. Destiny is financially successful. That's great. Leave it to them. I think the only reason why, honestly, they've been like that, like they've been the only ones who've been able to do it, like outside of like Warframe a little bit, is because of it's Bungie. Everyone else should just kind of leave it alone and just leave it to them, because no. But yeah, what I'm saying is, hopefully that genre gets expanded and it's good. But I'm already starting to get not so hopeful.
Well, that's actually funny you mentioned it. Now that I kind of caught my thoughts again, hearing you speak, You actually mentioned that both those games, Suicide Squad, Girls of Justice League, and Gotham Knights, I believe is the name of the other one. Um, the fact that you mentioned that, you just brought back a point that I wanted to make. Social games, or these looter shooters, and these games of service have really been the ones to champion open world co-op experiences. I mean, for what it is, I know you dislike the games, but that's a typical co-op experience, especially with Destiny and Division. Destiny is a game where you go off into the patrol, you explore together, you use your sparrows, you move around, and it's not fully co-op. I mean, it's a full co-op experience, but it's not. It doesn't incorporate.
Yeah.
It doesn't incorporate all the stuff that make co-op what co-op is. But the raids, I think, is one of the things that really demonstrate how a good co-op experience should be, by challenging players to work together, solve puzzles, and overcome the challenge. And Division has done a pretty good job at open world exploration with co-op partners, really giving each other loot and being there for each other, incorporating abilities. But I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to have to stop you right there and just challenge a couple of things that you said. Because here's the thing, all right? With Destiny, and this is still on topic because we're talking about co-op here, and Destiny ultimately encourages co-op through many different situations. I'm fully on board with you with saying that the raid is actually a high quality co-op experience. It's actually really fun. I've tried a few of them with you, and that's like one of the few times I could ever say I had fun with Destiny. The problem is that raids aren't really open world. When you ultimately look at it, like, Destiny's open world in the sense of, like, you go to a planet, it's a big expansive map, you can explore it. There's quote unquote dungeons, which I still think are kind of lackluster and stuff over in that game. But when you're talking about the cooperative experience in those open world environments, it tends to be stuff like stand in this circle, don't move outside of it for like a minute, and then like fight like waves of enemies. Whereas where it's a raid, it tends to be a bit more of a linear experience within like kind of it could be a big map, but it doesn't feel open world to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. It feels like a linear map, and then they set up certain puzzles and bosses and stuff for you to fight through that mission, which is a linear one.
Right. I mean, you do have your point, and you're right in what you say. But the thing about Destiny specifically is that a lot of it is Halo based. So it's, if you really zoom out and look at the layouts of the maps that you're playing, the entire experience is always linear. You're always going through a corridor, a hallway, and even the open worldish areas are more like little hub worlds where you can, or like microcosms of areas where everything's just kind of linear. You're always moving linear. You can't just cross over to another area. You have to go through a specific cavern or hallway around, and that's how they make their open worlds connected. But there are open world experiences. It's something that you haven't experienced because you normally don't like Destiny, is Escalation Protocol, which is specifically an open world activity where you start up and then the entire patrol area gets overrun by dozens and dozens of hive zombies that begin, or thrall, that begin attacking you, and then over time bosses start coming out and you have to go and take them out, because if not they'll blow up the entire patrol area, or you'll just lose.
I mean, I think I've actually played through some of those. I don't know if it's the exact one that you're talking about, but I remember when I was playing Destiny 1 with you, and we were doing the whole Taken King event or whatever, that a lot of the times, like, those random events will pop up in the world and stuff, and it's basically just still fighting waves of enemies. It has nowhere near the same amount of complexity that Grand Theft Auto 5 has, for example, where you described that you could manage a business with your friends, you could hop in a jet, go here, go there, do heists and stuff. So ultimately, I guess heists would be kind of like the raid as Destiny is, but it's still all within that one sandbox or open world. Whereas in Destiny, yeah, I kind of get what you're saying, where it's a little bit more limited, but then even then, that just goes more against the point where it's not even then a complete open world experience to begin with. Where what I'm trying to argue for, or say that I would like to see more of, is more Grand Theft Auto type co-op experiences, which I'm sure it's hard to develop for, because like I said, it's already so hard to develop an open world to begin with. But it would be really sick if like some other developer could just get a hang of that, where they make an open world game and then create like an immersive, meaningful co-op experience within it as well.
Yeah, so the other game I brought up as an example is Division 2. Division 2 throws players into an open world, like overrun sort of post-apocalyptic world, and like probably about 3 months after, or I think Division 2 is actually 7 months after a catastrophe or whatever happened in the story. But that game's actually a little bit closer to the example you're looking for now. They don't have vehicles, and they don't have all the extra complex mechanics that GTA has that allows for such creativity. But the game is open world, and there's a lot of moving real-time events going on in the game where like one player can be on one side of Washington D.C. and another player can be on another side, and they can kind of teleport to each other and pick up each other's loot, or they might just do their own looting within the same open area. And then of course you can always jump into missions within the open world. You don't instance, you don't load in. You just walk right into the level. It's always ready to go, which I think was something kind of unique that they instance the world in real time in a way. So it's like you don't feel like you're going through a loading screen while you're going through the missions. That's actually pretty awesome in my experience. From my experience.
Yeah, that basically just makes it feel like it's more of a cohesive map and stuff, and it gives you the proper feeling that an open world game should. I honestly think that Division has potential. I played it with you, and I've enjoyed it a bit here and there. Now you kind of showed me the a few tips and tricks to be able to actually play it. But to me, where the disappointment with the Division lies is, number one, it suffered from the same syndrome that many other games have now, where they demo the game and it ends up looking like something completely different. Like it always ends up being engineered to look like 20 times better than what it actually ends up being. So, you kind of get into the world, it feels a bit more desolate than it should, and it doesn't look as good as it should. And then it also, because of the fact that there's not vehicles and stuff like that, which you guys already know, I'm a big like old school Halo fan and stuff, and I've already kind of had my fun in those games with how crazy you can get to make cooperative, to have cooperative things in that game. I feel like that's kind of what's missing in the Division. It's adding vehicles and different types of quests that could end up making your cooperative experience feel a little bit more meaningful in the Division. Now, what I like about the Division is your interaction of your abilities and stuff, and that's kind of what Destiny has too. I feel like Destiny does it a little bit better, because I remember, back when I used to play the Titan Bubble and all that, it just felt really cool mixing those abilities. The Division doesn't have that going for it, and it's also a bit worse in my opinion, in the sense that they're going for that more realistic type of feel in the game. It's not like a sci-fi RPG or whatever. So I think for me to really get invested into the Division, they're going to have to make some further changes in how the abilities work, and also just adding more diverse things to it as well.
Well, I'm gonna stop you right there, because again, like you said, you haven't really gotten into the Division as far as you should have to get a complete opinion or idea of it.
That's fair.
Specifically, if I had to say it, for the most part, Division's overall co-op experience in Division 1 and a little bit in Division 2 is a bit more interactive with the players involved, rather than Destiny 2 is in Destiny 1. Now, when it comes to raids and really grabbing the activity to challenge the players' cooperative experience, Destiny does a better job with that. But when it comes to cohesive interaction, like the flow or the handshake experience between players, where like they do one thing and it combines with what another player is doing, that's not so big in Destiny. Destiny's a pretty big game.
You got emotes though. You got emote dances, and you got all that.
The Division has that too, man. That's just what's it called? The microtransaction that's everywhere. But what I was trying to say is, in Destiny, like a lot of the supers and abilities are pretty like solo experiences. They're about you exploding the map and making you have that. It's like we're all taking turns in Destiny. It feels like we're all taking turns to kind of have our big,
like a power fantasy.
Yeah, like our big power fantasy moment where we're kind of saving the day. Versus in Division, where it kind of feels like we're all, stuck behind a wall, really trying to overcome a challenge. That's why they both have like their difference of appearance and appeal to the player, because of the experience that they're trying to promote. Now, in Division, one thing you haven't really seen is, for example, there's a lot of ways that you can combine things with players. The tech role, or a person that follows more like the blue tech abilities within the game, can actually have an ability that like you can stick a buff to a wall so that everyone gets behind the wall within the area next to you gets increased damage and increased damage resistance, followed by another player that can put a medkit to heal everyone that will then revive them. And then on top of it, another player can just use their ultimate, which their ultimate, instead of being like just an aggressive one-off power fantasy, it actually buffs the entire team to have increased damage and increased damage resistance, or revive them and then heal them.
I mean, that's decent. I didn't Destiny have a lot of those? Just real quick. No, Destiny didn't have a lot of those.
They brought it in Destiny 2, but like I said, they're really siloed experiences tailored to a specific type of moment. They're not. It doesn't allow for that level of creativity that Division 2 brings by allowing people to use all these stats to mix and match what they want.
Well, I mean, I guess in that case, I wouldn't be proud of one game over another for getting one more right than the other, because ultimately these are mechanics that have existed, since like the early RPGs and MMORPGs that also had raids and stuff like that too. So my big thing here is that these games that are being made so much later, they should get a complete mastery of what's already been done, implement the full interactivity that can be had within RPG games, and then take what their perspective genres that are separate from RPGs have, and combine them together. Ultimately, that's what I think is going to be the big success formula for the cooperative experiences in these games. Halo 3, one of the most legendary things that people always love to talk about was like that last mission where the Halo's blowing up, and then you either have to do like a warthog and a banshee, no, a warthog and a ghost, or you all do a ghost, and then it becomes even worse because if one of you dies, like it doesn't count or whatever, and if you want to get the achievement when none of you dies, you have to try again. Like, that's the sort of fun that's missing from these games, where an RPG element to it could really make it have more depth, have more depth than just, pick up a plasma rifle and a plasma pistol and a battle rifle. Now you're thinking about what are the stats that you could kind of mess with, and all the different RPG elements of it, and then combining your abilities and stuff. And then on top of that, you have the action moments and all the fun that could be brought by having dynamic maps and different vehicles and stuff like that.
And that's actually something funny you mentioned, specifically the Halo 3 experience, because I've actually seen about three missions in the actually, Emerald here on our Twitch channel has asked what the topic is for today's episode. It's actually about what makes a good co-op game. We're really trying to discuss how certain types of challenges or mechanics in a game can really spruce up the experience and make it a fun co-op experience, versus like games like Destiny and Division, which might feel a little bit too sluggish with spongy enemies and just too much stat driven. But we're really going on those topics.
Like, just basically to reinforce what he's saying is, like, we're just kind of talking about co-op games in general, and then what we feel like we're expressing our opinions on what we feel makes them fun, or like what actually makes a good co-op game. So while we have the conversation, we're going to be talking about some current games that have cooperative experiences, and then we're going to be talking about maybe some old ones. We're going to be talking about which ones we think work, and we're going to be talking about some that we don't like, we think that are pretty much trash.
Right. And kind of lost my train of thought.
Well, I think we just left off talking about the Division and Destiny, but I think that actually opens up an avenue to talk about. You put hack and I noticed you put hack and slash and beat 'em up separate. Is there a difference there?
Yeah, just to clarify, so a hack and slasher is more like a 3D God of War type of game, and a beat 'em up is more like those 2D old school, double dragon Street Fighter games. I forget the name of the other one, but the double
I know
dragon
the one I know what you're talking about.
Double Dragon Neon, that sort of stuff.
Would Shadow the Hedgehog count as a hack and slash?
I don't know what to classify that game as, honestly. I don't know what to classify it as.
I have to laugh at that. Sorry, guys. That's the... Oh, man, because... You know what? Let's jump... I want to jump into hack and slash real quick, because I think we did more or less a good job talking about open world and RPG. We could always revisit it in a second, but I've just been holding that thought in the back of my head, because I could have sworn that, like, the co-op experience in Shadow the Hedgehog, like that old PS2 game, was a fever dream, dude. Because that game is supposed to be one player. Like, I'm pretty sure if you... I don't know. Let me look up the box for Shadow the Hedgehog here. Or the manual. Would the manual say if it's two player or something?
Just search up if it's co-op or not. Google answers all of these things for us.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm pretty sure the game is registered as being single player, but like, if you look at the box and stuff, it straight up tells you that it's single player. But the thing is that it's actually co-op, which is extremely interesting, because it's not supposed to be co-op. Oh no, it says two players. Oh yeah, but for battle, right?
Yeah. For battle mode.
Okay, so that's the thing. All right, so it's supposed to be battle mode. You know that it's only 2-player for battle mode, but the thing is, I remember me and my brother essentially discovered. Oh, my bad. I was trying to show you guys the edgy art here. God, I can't believe this game was a real thing, bro. But yeah, basically, me and my brother discovered that this game was actually 2-player for the single player campaign, and I just thought that was the most busted thing ever, because it's not like the other player even gets their own screen or anything. It's kind of like you as Shadow have the camera behind you, and you're doing all the things that you normally would, and then like the other player can just plug in their controller and just start controlling the actions of the whoever's with you for that mission, despite the fact that they don't have a camera of their own. And it was just weird.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say about that experience because I only really played the single player, and I think I only did like 2 or 3 endings. But I did want to point out something you mentioned, the fact that the box says it's 1 player. This isn't, I mean, it's probably one of the few times that that you can call back to that's happened. But another game actually did that was actually Killzone 3 on PS3. That game says it's straight up 1 player. And I remember I discussed it with a friend of mine where he was literally raging, or not raging, but he was like arguing with me that no, it's a single player experience. But as soon as I started up the game and put the second controller for him and he started playing the second player, he was like, huh?
Wait,
like,
was it split screen, or it was split screen, or it wasn't like you were just controlling like another character? So
No. It's legitimately like full split screen. You're controlling another character, and we're both playing the same game. Now, I know it's not the same thing, but the point is that the game advertised itself as a single player, one player, one controller game, and within the same screen, you can split screen with a second player and actually both enjoy and play the game together, which I thought was interesting.
Weird. Maybe they didn't want to market it as a split screen game because maybe the game didn't perform that well on the same console split screen.
No, it's just there wasn't anything around it. It's just random, and a lot of people to this day still think that Killzone 3 was not a split screen game, that it was actually a single player game, but you can actually play it with friends.
Okay, interesting. So let's see. Emerald in the Twitch chat here said, I feel like co-op games should give you something to work for and make it worth it. And then Shadow the Hedgehog is a throwback for you. Yeah, man, I think it's a throwback for everyone. I think everyone almost tried to forget this game was a thing. I mean, it was fun, but my God, it was definitely a busted gem from the days of 3D Sonic, Okay, yeah, so, yeah. So as far as what you said regarding co-op games having to work towards an objective, that's interesting, because most of the time I guess it would make it feel more like important if you have something to work towards. But there's some cooperative games where I think it's a little bit more lax in the fact that it doesn't give you a goal outright, or I'm kind of having a brain fart right now.
I got it from here, because now with that comment, I actually, thank you, Emerald. Now I actually remembered what I wanted to say at first when we were going back to Destiny and Division. That's actually something you brought up too that I also want to bring up. You said that not every game is extremely challenge driven. There's a lot of a lax experience, and I think that's what people like a lot about Destiny and Division, is that there's a lax experience for the open worldish areas where you kind of just talk. It's like a game where you just talk about your day with your friend,
like a social space, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. It's a social space, but the backdrop is you shooting aliens or bad guys with big boy guns that you went on those harder activities to accomplish. So, but that's just that point. I just wanted to make that remark. What I wanted to say before is, a thing that you were mentioning about the Halo 3 challenge of using the Warthog and escaping. I've actually seen that same design in Destiny about 3 times. Once in Rise of Iron, once in Destiny 2, the main experience. The main single player, or not single player, the main campaign experience towards the end with the Almighty, and then once in the Last Wish raid. So
wait, but I would have heard about that if it still had it, man. Are you telling me? But you share a vehicle or something? And
no, you don't. But it's just the whole we're all running to get away from an explosion or something bad that's about to happen, when they made it in Halo 3, they made that experience specifically catered to feel like a challenge, which is how they create a set piece how they created that set piece in the game. In Destiny and a lot of these social games, especially with evolving a lot of players, and this goes back to episode 2 with difficulty, a lot of people tend to shy away from challenges and feel like they don't want to really deal with something in these type of games. I don't know.
Too much soy in their diet.
Soy in their diet. Grow a couple of chest hairs, guys.
Yeah, you gotta making a game hard is part of the fun, man. I mean, granted, it's not for everybody, so I guess don't play with your friends and put it on easy. But like, hey, some of us miss the good old days where you would sit there for hours trying to beat something with your friends, and it was a hard time.
Yeah, it's this thing where they have to kind of cater the experience to everyone playing, and I think one of the problems of why Destiny is so easy and not such a fun co-op experience to more like the hardcore players or not just necessarily hardcore players, but people that pursue co-op experiences with their friend is that they generally try to make it a simple experience for the many players that play it. I've noticed that, especially in the community, not to really rank on anyone, because I'm not gonna sit here and name names, especially because I don't remember all of them, but I've seen players that really complain and they're just like, take away supers, take away platforming, take away timed objectives. I just want to sit here with my gun and pew pew a couple aliens. And I think that's kind of like the suffering experience that Destiny's going through. I know for a fact that boss that we talked about last time, where we were kind of challenged with, I think it was the Technocrat is like his title in Beyond Light, Destiny 2 Beyond Light, where like he was kind of whooping my butt, and then you kind of came in and gave me like a different opinion or gave me a different point of view where I was able to finally beat it. There's actually people that return the game because of that, considering that boss way too hard, and I think that's the problem with many of the co-op games today, is that it's catered to such a casual, experience.
If you're a Destiny fan and you return the game because of that, I hate Destiny, and I literally almost beat him on my first try, and I don't play that game. So get good. Seriously.
Yeah, but it's not even just about getting good. Destiny's an RPG. If you're having problems beating a level, it just means stop, go to the open world, level up, and come back. That's just lame.
It wasn't even a matter of that, though. Like, literally, all you had to do, you were just unga-bunging, and you were trying to throw yourself at the boss. I was like, Jordan, relax. Stay away from him, because he's clearly going to kill you with a melee. Shoot him. Shoot his guys, shoot the thing, run when you're low, and that's it. Like, that was the most brain dead boss I've ever fought.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was distracted too because I was having like my own argument / discussion with Mike, and of course I'm a bad player, as I mentioned last time. But the point is that that's what you do. You don't just, it's a problem, let me just sit here and give up. And I don't want to rank on anyone, but if I know for a fact that I was taught as a person that if I just give up like that, it speaks volumes.
I'll rank on you, no worries.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you for what should I call it, for roasting me on twitch.tv / Co-OpSyndicate.
Yeah, not you though. I'm saying I'll rank if someone, like, seriously, guys, don't don't quit at things, man. I know it's just a game, and maybe you're just playing it because you're trying to have fun or whatever. But that's such a bad mentality to carry with you, like, into anything. Like, if you just quit at the first sign of trouble, that's just a poor mentality to adapt into anything in life. Like, challenge yourself, grow. I know you might want to have fun, but if you're trying to have fun, then do the easy thing in the game. Stop demanding that people cater to a difficulty that you want to just play at when it's actually supposed to be something challenging.
Yeah, and honestly, if I wanted to sit in a game where I'm not platforming as much, or I just wanted to shoot bad guys, I just slip on Call of Duty or Doom the 1990s Dooms and just sit there and just shoot at enemies, so I don't have to worry about platforming. But to make every single game of today try and be like each other, like Destiny, make it more like Doom, or make it more like Final Fantasy, I don't know, whatever people want to ask for. I mean, you're kind of ruining the whole point of an IP. The IP is supposed to challenge, the notion and try to be different as a game. If Destiny starts to go too slow, it feels like Halo. If it goes too fast, it feels like COD. Destiny has its own specific experience where it's an in-between, and it should
it's like its own rhythm.
Exactly. So when people start asking for easier things, it kind of just takes away or detracts from what the game is supposed to be in the first place. At that point, if I make the game feel like COD, then I might as well just play COD and not Destiny. But anyways, going back to the thing, I feel like that's actually a problem that I see in a lot of co-op games where that happens. So, but the experiences are there, and it's funny how you mentioned it, because a similar situation where you're running away from an enemy has happened 3 times fold three times in Destiny. In Rise of Iron, when you explode the final main campaign boss, which is like the three Iron Lords, the three corrupt zombie Iron Lords, you start running away from the vault of where they're hidden, the Siva's hidden, and you start running away. But like you have a whole minute to get there. As a guardian, if you know how to floof as a warlock, by the way, fighting with a warlock and mastering it, it's called floofing, where you properly propel yourself forward by floating. Or as a Titan, you Titan skate, or as a hunter, you run and jump. You could get all the way across the entire hallway within 20 to 30 seconds, but you have a whole minute, so it just takes away, I have to rush out there, but then halfway through it, you're like, I can just take my time, I'm not really going to die. And that takes away the experience of the Halo 3 one, where you really felt like you had to move it, like, hightail it, especially, and that experience has been there since Halo 1. They've done this, like, Halo 1. They were probably going to do it in Halo 2, but obviously they were out of time and they couldn't develop that far, but they did it again in Halo 3, and then they did it again in Rise of Iron, they did it again in Destiny 2, the Almighty mission towards the end, and then they did it again in Last Wish. Now, the only one that actually worked that was similar to the Halo 3 experience was the Last Wish experience, because on top of the fact you had to get somewhere while you're running out of time, you have to carry a ball with your team, and every 30 seconds, one of them would get teleported into another area, so you had to figure out how to time yourself correctly, so you'd extend it by pushing it forward within the other world, while one guy's carrying the ball and moving it forward to finish a level, and you had to work as a team, and it really put pressure. That's how you do the co-op experience.
So you could tell that Jordan got clearly very excited by this topic. What he's trying to say is that basically to make a co-op experience good, he thinks that you also need a certain element of difficulty and possibly danger, something to just rush it up a little bit, give you a little bit of excitement. And I'm totally on board with him. I don't think that nerfing things for the sake of nerfing it because people complain is the healthiest thing for a game ever, or it's even the healthiest thing for you. And honestly, I think difficulty is actually one of the best ways that you could introduce another interesting layer into a co-op experience as well. I remember one of the big things for us, since we're already talking about Destiny, that's like a first-person shooter. And I don't know what this game classifies. I think it's like one of the most unique experiences I've ever had. It's kind of like a first-person shooter, kind of like a puzzle type of game. Was Portal 2. We did the co-op campaign together a while back, and I remember that some of the puzzles were actually extremely challenging to try and get done. And to this day, I have a bad memory, guys. Like I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I'm just gonna try to relate with you guys on a little bit more of a personal note. I suffer a little bit from emotional and clinical depression, and that kind of takes its toll on my memory. Like I have the memory of a goldfish, and I literally sometimes struggle to remember what I had for breakfast. And so
it's all good, man. We feel for you. We're here for you. I'm here for you. I'm
it's
always
all good,
here
man.
for you.
We don't gotta stress about it too much. I'm just sharing a little bit of myself with you guys. But yeah, I have the memory of a goldfish, and so sometimes I don't even remember what I had for breakfast. But something that stuck in my mind until today's date is that campaign, like the co-op campaign for Portal 2. I don't remember a whole lot of specifics about it. I just remember that there was one puzzle that we literally spent hours just looking at the screen, not knowing what to do, until one of us had a eureka moment, and then we did something that required us to do, like it required a certain setup that basically we had to make a portal and then quickly fire another portal and send something flying through both of those at the same time, and then that was like the last level or something, and then when we finally got it, like we were jumping up in joy from the challenge that presented to us. And also, I just wanted to point out that I thought that game was extremely unique. So those are two variables I think that actually contribute to a good co-op experience right there, is the uniqueness of it and also the challenge that it presents.
Yeah, I remember that puzzle fondly, and don't feel bad about the memory thing. I mean, that just happens generally with a lot of games where you only really remember specific moments that are really exciting. But that specific puzzle that you mentioned, I remember specifically to this day, and I hate the fact that I remember it. I wish I remembered just the joy and not the solution to it, because I would like to go back and re-experience that puzzle and solve it for myself.
Why don't you tell us what the puzzle was? Because honestly, I don't remember the details.
As far as I remember, it was near the end of, I think it was like chapter 5 or mission 5 or whatever. It was like towards the end. And there was a specific puzzle where I had to teleport to a separate room with a companion cube. Specifically, and have it slide down these lasers, timing it perfectly so a bridge, like 3-part bridge, would extend itself, and we would have to coordinate to properly get across that bridge on time to beat the level. I remember that I was sitting there throwing the companion cube down the slide, looking at the map, and until I finally saw through your screen, because I couldn't see it from my screen, that the bridge was extending as I was doing it, and I was like, oh, it's a timed puzzle. So what I did was I created I timed it with you. I coordinated with you. I was like, stand by the bridge and get ready. I'm gonna drop this cube and we're gonna haul ass, and I'm gonna have to teleport to you. So what I did was, as soon as I did the countdown, I dropped the companion cube. I quickly did the portal. I teleported back to Mike, and we both ran across the entire bridge. I think the first time we actually fell, which is kind of like lame, one of us actually fell and we had to go back and do it again. But the point is, that one moment where we finally accomplished something and got past that challenge is what really made that experience for us. It sold us that Portal 2 was such a great experience in a co-op way. And I don't think games incorporate that nowadays, but Portal was like a niche thing, and it was its own experience, and I wish there would be a Portal 3 where they take it even further now with next-gen mechanics. Maybe, who knows, maybe Portal 3 might come as a VR game. We don't know. But the point is that experience specifically is a great example of how co-op should be done in challenging the players, not by necessarily difficulty, but by puzzles.
What developer was it that made Portal again?
Oh, no, that was Valve, the creators of Half-Life and all those big boy games.
Yeah, so basically ever since they've been slurping on Dota, they're never going to make another Portal ever again, pretty much.
Well, I think themselves, like, they kind of got to a point where they don't want to fall with what happened to other companies. Obviously, complacency, you can talk about complacency with certain types of games and whatnot, but I think Valve specifically, or specifically Gabe Newell, the creator, he just feels that when it comes to making sequels, you start letting it get away from yourself. So he doesn't want to go on a mission to make a game that somehow does better than his previous games, because Half-Life 2 is highly revered as such an amazing experience. So it's kind of hard.
I would say it's legendary.
Yeah, it's considered a legendary experience, and so is Portal. So it's kind of hard to top that experience,
That's fair, but I mean, I would agree with you if the case was that they were still developing interesting titles. But honestly, I feel like they've just been releasing mediocre things that are either like soulless or like not as good versions of like their previous games, or just like stupid add-ons to titles that are already big. Like I think I don't know, I think it was a year ago or something, they're getting ready to release like a mobile something of Dota or whatever that no one cares about, instead of like working on like another big title. It doesn't even have to be like a Half-Life 3 or whatever. Like just make something that isn't dog shit, I guess.
Well, okay, I'm gonna stop you there real quick. A little bit of a sneak peek preview to our next episode. We're actually gonna talk about this game. Their biggest title this year actually came out since then, and it's actually considered in itself a masterpiece of VR to really prove what VR is. It's a 10 out of 10 game in every way, shape, and form. It's just that it came out for VR, so it's not as widely acknowledged as other games are, because it's not accessible to everyone. But Half-Life Alyx.
How long did it take him to get to Half-Life Alyx, though?
Well, here's the thing. Themselves as a developer, they've stopped fully developing games. They've just catered to their ongoing fans. But they actually have another developer that's specifically focused on Half-Life Alyx. I think they took like 3 or 4 years to make the experience of the game. They created a game that fully encompasses what VR is supposed to be today. With like fully animated hands grabbing objects from the map, putting them together, fully animating the 3D experience of turning around, killing enemies in first person shooting, first person puzzle solving, incorporating that Half-Life like Portal experience in there.
Okay, so I agree with you, like in the sense that honestly, like the fact that they made such a great experience for VR is great, but I'm a little disappointed that it did take him so long to come up with something that was good. But it's only 15 hours, and how long? I don't know. It's been years, I feel like, since they actually released anything before Half-Life Alyx. That's kind of disappointing. Personally, I feel like if they weren't stuck in a cycle of complacency for so long, they could have released other good games while they were also developing Half-Life Alyx. That's kind of where I stand on that subject.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things we can talk on, and I think now we're kind of going a little bit off topic here at this point.
Right.
But just to close off the comment, yeah, I mean. They may have a little bit of complacency, but again, like I said, they built their own studio now, like their own subsidiary studio that's kind of focusing on game development again in a way. And the Half-Life Alyx is one of the things. And another thing I want to point out: games of old were really only like 4 to 8 hours long. So for it to be a 15-hour experience, that's technically like in line with Last of Us Part 1 and God of War 3, maybe a little bit longer. It's probably a little bit longer than God of War 3, but it kind of has a nice middle ground. And for a VR game, That's pretty hard to program all those things within the game, plus make it that long. That shows volumes of what they can do if they really put their mind to it. And I'm really, we may be waiting a lot longer, but we're definitely probably going to get a Half-Life part, Half-Life 3 or Half-Life episode, Half-Life 2 episode 3 at one point, or maybe a Portal 3. Something there's going to happen at one point. This new crew seems to be very inspired by Valve.
Hopefully, if we do get a Portal 3, they do end up making another co-op experience. Maybe they should consider making it 3 to 4 players. I don't know, do something crazy. Make a 6-player experience, online only or something. That would actually be pretty mad. But I think we should digress there.
No, actually, now you mention it, let's bring it back to the co-op here. They do have a co-op game. It's Left 4 Dead. Everybody remembers Left 4 Dead fondly. Left 4 Dead is a massive 4-player game.
That's
right?
Valve?
Yeah, that's also Valve. I mean, it was made by Turtle Rock, but Turtle Rock left and Valve kept the IP. It's part of their repertoire.
Ah, that's pretty interesting because they are going to be making that. What was it called again?
I think you're talking about Back 4 Blood.
Yeah, Back 4 Blood. We actually got to play that when that comes out, brother. That actually looks pretty sick. I missed the Left 4 Dead of old. That was actually a game that I enjoyed. I didn't play it that much, but the little bit I did play, I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and definitely that's a game, like I said, it's a Valve thing, so it's on Steam. It's definitely a game that we're probably going to stream at one point, because obviously this is a co-op syndicate, so we got to have a little bit of co-op here for it to make sense as to why we're co-op syndicate. But yeah, the Left 4 Dead is actually what you're talking about, that you want a co-op experience from them. That's one of them. Now, granted, again, they did the same thing. They made a second game, and then they just stopped making sequels. But that's a good example of them making co-op experiences on themselves, developing it themselves. And one of the things that I feel about Left 4 Dead, which is something I want to talk about, is that co-op experiences should in itself be a complete experience alongside a bigger experience. What I mean by that is that a lot of time I play Left 4 Dead and I think it's a great game. It's really well developed. It's a full game. It has about 4 campaigns, as they call it, but technically they're just 2-hour-long missions, depending on how fast you beat them. The game, in its actuality, when you pay for it, you really, and I felt this as a kid, I feel this now as an adult, it just feels like I'm paying full price for Spec Ops in a Call of Duty game by itself and not actually getting the full game. And I feel, and this is something I don't want to hate on the developers, especially now because they're making Back 4 Blood and it seems that they're going to do the same thing. But I don't feel like there's a long continuous campaign, but rather I'm just getting a game with 4 campaign modes or 4 missions that they're all each their own instanced modes. And that's what I'm paying for. And I'm only paying for what would technically be a side experience or a side piece to a full game. And that's something I want to point out too. A co-op experience should be fully incorporated into the game into a full experience, or it should be something that goes alongside a bigger experience like a Call of Duty or Destiny or another game. It shouldn't necessarily feel so small. But I guess maybe making it small and the fact that they didn't let it go out of what they were capable of doing is also what made it such a good game, that they were able to close off and like really make a decent experience.
Well, I understand what you're saying because Left 4 Dead, it's an old game. It came out pretty early on for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 gen, correct? But I disagree with you in the sense that maybe nowadays it does feel like it would be something that comes on as like an add-on to a game. So, that aspect of it might be dated. But you have to understand that a very similar game or something that I guess tried to do something similar. I don't know. I think Nazi zombies came first. But basically Left 4 Dead did what Nazi zombies did to the 10th level, if you know what I mean. Most of the zombies maps, even in games now, where zombies is still an add-on, the maps tend to be very small. Now they're bigger than they were before. Like the one for Cold War is very big. But these maps, they're very repetitive. You cycle through the areas and all that. Whereas Left 4 Dead kind of had more. They were set pieces and they weren't the biggest ones, but they definitely felt more unique, I think, compared to the maps that you get in zombies. And then also something else you have to look at is, you had I think you could heal your teammates and stuff, right? So you had that sort of interactivity going on and stuff there. But compared to a game like Zombies, where typically per every map, you only got like 2 different types of zombies, maybe the traditional type of zombie, and then maybe like a boss type or like, hounds or something that you'd get every so many rounds. In Left 4 Dead, I think you at least had like 4 or 5 different types, whereas Nazi zombies, every map, you only get like at most 2 or 3.
Right, and that's the thing. Like I said, Left 4 Dead is technically a full game. Left 4 Dead in its time is technically a full game, and they do have bosses, and you go on these missions that are technically called campaigns. Like it's like almost if you got four campaigns, and they all equate to about 8 hours, an 8 hour experience, which would be a general game. But because it was so instant and like it's such a separated from each other in its continuity that it didn't feel like it just felt like I was getting modes.
Got it. Yeah. So I do feel like they probably could have stood to improve the narrative. And then another thing also is that hopefully they when the new one comes out, Back for Blood, that they end up addressing some of these things, make it feel a little bit longer, bigger, maybe add more enemy variety there, and then maybe add abilities and stuff to make it even more crazy.
Yeah, and not to say the idea was bad. It was good for its time, but I really hope that for Back for Blood they kind of expand upon that and really use the game as a service model and add maybe 4 extra campaigns beyond the 4 that they would probably initially launch with. Or even if they launch with 1 and it's a game as a service game like Hitman, just do what they did with Hitman. Actually provide the content and really expand upon the experience, because this type of experience does still exist. There's Overkill's The Walking Dead, which is technically the exact same mechanics and style of single player, but those games failed. I mean, they were glitchy, they were kind of boring, and they tried to just live off of Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead was its own thing, and a lot of people tried to copy that, but it doesn't take off well because they're just copying. They're not really iterating like how other companies would do when they're copying.
Well, you know what? Let me ask you something, because this is actually an interesting thing that's been in the back of my mind. So far we talked about like all these sort of crazy co-op experiences with Portal 2, GTA 5 Online and all that. Why is it that sometimes the most simple instances of co-op could also be some of the most fun or the most inviting? For example, Nazi zombies versus Left 4 Dead, where obviously maybe Left 4 Dead now you could say it's kind of dated compared to some of the stuff that Zombies has done recently, but like even now compared to Left 4 Dead, the Zombies maps, tend to be more cyclical, repetitive, not as many different enemy types. Why is it that an experience like Zombies tends to be like it sells some of the Treyarch Call of Duty sometimes even more than the normal multiplayers or campaigns do?
Right, and that goes again to the co-op experience that I was mentioning before. There's a lot of factors into it that I feel personally. For one, I feel like Call of Duty with the whole more realism and like the whole you're literally blowing off legs and the kickbacks that enemies feel when they get shot.
You're saying that's Call of Duty?
Yeah, Call of Duty, and specifically Call of Duty Zombies. Like they kind of tend to cater to that kind of experience. So,
well, I wouldn't say it outright goes and is like fake though, because of the fact that you get the wonder weapons and all that. I wouldn't say it's realistic and stuff because you get the wonder weapons and stuff like that too.
No, I'm not saying realistic. I'm saying like the feeling or experience where you see like you shoot somebody and they kind of react to it. There's an animation of reaction to it. Left 4 Dead had that, but because like I guess what I'm trying to say is Call of Duty dresses it up with animations, intensity, graphics, and all that stuff, which Left 4 Dead kind of lacked on a bit. It was more like an old school shooter than it was like a graphically pro game like a Call of Duty game would have, with all the extra sound effects and animations and this and that. Not to say that Left 4 Dead doesn't have great mechanics like that, but it doesn't seem it didn't go as far as like what Call of Duty was doing.
You think it was a bit more of an immersive experience, at least in terms of like graphics and design and stuff?
They both are, but Zombies and Call of Duty they kind of rounded the experience a bit more, and then at the same time kept that Call of Duty fun. Whereas Left 4 Dead was kind of like you had to find ways to be strategic and all that to get past certain points in the level, to get across the level. Zombies is actually relentless in its experience. You don't really have a place to hide. Zombies are always coming at you. In Left 4 Dead, you have moments to breathe and all that, which is, again, it goes off the fact that it's a campaign versus an ongoing survival experience. So I guess
that also ties back into what we were saying before, where challenge is part of what makes a co-op experience feel good. So obviously, when it comes to something as simple as Zombies, it's presenting itself as, I guess there's multiple layers to it, because to me, as someone who plays Zombies, I tend to get the Treyarch games a lot because of Zombies. I think it's a fun experience to have with your friends. One of the best things that, you and I have gone through a lot since you're a trophy hunter. We've always tried to do all the things in Zombies, is the fact that they put very fun Easter eggs in each one. They're always different. You kind of discover like a hidden narrative about the game mode by doing those Easter eggs and stuff. You explore maps that they typically tend to put like different powers and different weapons in. They put different boss characters. So there's the exploration aspect of it, even though it's a small, repetitive map. They make it diverse enough where most of them feel worth exploring, and it feels worth investing your time and looking around in the map. And then there's also the challenge aspect of it, where you want to go as far as you can, get as high as you can, beat as many zombies as you can. And then just to kind of talk a little bit more about the exploration, it gets a little bit more deeper, where you want to upgrade your weapons, see what the different variations of all your weapons do, and et cetera, et cetera.
Right, a lot of things you just mentioned are all in Left 4 Dead, but like I said, it's actually like how you said, Left 4 Dead is already a little bit outdated, and like I said, there's no one that really truly iterated upon that experience, which is why I'm happy that Turtlerock's kind of going back to their roots with that, with the game, with the game style that kind of made their name in the first place with Back 4 Blood, and I really do hope that they take it that much further and bring the Left 4 Dead experience into the mainstream, because it's something that's been left behind, and it's still a great experience.
Yeah, basically is what we always talk about, that whenever you make a sequel or you make something that's in the same realm of what you worked on before, you should really hope to expand upon it, take everything you had, put it there, and then put more, only taking out things that are bad or didn't work, never taking out anything that did work.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's pretty much what I have to say about that. I really like Left 4 Dead. I want an experience to come back. I'm excited for Back 4 Blood. I'm not hating on the company. I think they did a great job. I just feel like what you were trying to say with COD is that COD continuously comes out every year, so they constantly iterated it. I don't think they had that same level of experience. And Left 4 Dead 2, a lot of people like it too, but it was literally just Left 4 Dead 1 with better graphics. Like, they literally almost didn't add anything new. Probably a couple new weapons on it, and I think that's also kind of what upset me about the Left 4 Dead franchise, is that I feel kind of hurt because they iterated quite a lot to make such a unique experience in the first game, and they didn't really do anything for the second game. And like I said, for the time, Left 4 Dead 1 releasing the way it did was being such a small experience was fine, because that's the only experience that they were catering to. But then the fact that Left 4 Dead 2 was literally the same thing with the exact same length of experience and whatnot, that affected me a little bit adversely. Which is why I was kind of turned off a bit from the franchise. And of course, it never really came to PlayStation from what I remember. So when I moved to PlayStation, I obviously had to leave behind the franchise. But anyways, going back now, to the topics we were talking about, let's continue with puzzle type games and co-op, because I actually wanted to bring up an interesting point. A fun co-op game, which is not a co-op game at all, or two co-op games actually, are PT and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, why am I saying this? I feel like co-op experience is something that's it's social. It's what gets people to communicate with each other, to create interesting experiences within games. And I think that's also why content creators are so beloved, because they find ways to share with a community what they experience that might be different from what another person is currently experiencing. So here's the interesting thing, right? Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a full single-player game. But there's so much creativity and different mechanics and different puzzles that you can do, and each thing you pick up has such a unique and interesting aspect to it, that different players can come together to solve puzzles and figure out how to move around the world and combine certain types of mechanics and weapons. And then they might both have different experiences that they will share with each other to better improve how they experience the game. And because the game allows for so much experimentation, like that level of social aspect that allows people to communicate, to build upon their experiences together, despite the fact that it's such a solo experience, I think makes it for a much better co-op experience, despite the fact that it doesn't have anywhere near the same co-op experience as you would see in like a Left 4 Dead. I don't know if you want to have some input on that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's kind of like touching up on what we said before, in the fact that the more complexity you put into it, the more layered and the more reason. I don't know if it's the more reason you have to play, but just that it adds. It's like the same as any other game, the more a game has to it, the more you feel like you could get invested or play it even more. Maybe if something is a one-trick pony and then that's good enough for some players, that'll be enough to hold them over. But if you want to capture a bigger audience, you go ahead, put more to the game, and then people will actually play it more.
One-trick pony.
Yeah, one-trick pony. So, in terms of what you were saying, yeah, I agree. I think those puzzle games like Legend of Zelda, Portal 2 really that was something that really did a good job in holding us over in playing them, and it definitely made it more interesting. And I think the same thing is kind of it's gonna spread across to every genre. If we look at playing it in every other genre, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. Where adversity, the lore, all these different things are going to contribute to making it a more interesting experience.
Yeah, and then now to add to that, PT was the other game I mentioned. There's actually going to be a third game I'm going to mention afterwards, but PT is another great co-op experience, especially because Hideo Kojima legitimately designed it so that the entire community would have to come together for the final puzzle to solve it. Granted, it was eventually solved by an accident because people found out that all you had to do was actually speak into the game was a solution, or the assumed solution based off of the information we have that generally works 90% of the time. But that was actually something an interesting thing where Hideo Kojima literally designed this whole experience catered to the community that's going to play it. Where he literally came together to build. I mean, he literally created a puzzle that revolved around an entire community working together to solve it.
And you know what? That's actually really funny because that actually doesn't even count as a co-op game. But he somehow managed to create like a meta cooperative experience outside of the game, and that actually kind of segues into the next thing I kind of wanted to talk about, which is bad co-op game. Well, we already started talking about some bad co-op games, but what I'm trying to say, let me just kind of lay out my thoughts, and then you guys can just follow along with me and what I'm trying to say here. So, Hideo Kojima made PT. It was a playable teaser for Silent Hill. Silent Hill isn't a cooperative game. It was a completely single-player experience. However, it was a puzzle that was so challenging that no single person had any likelihood of beating it. You know, people had to take to the internet and play with other or kind of brainstorm with players all around the globe to get it done. However, I think that, and you know, that kind of brings up a discussion about how a cooperative experience can be fulfilling simply by design. And that had none of the traditional elements of a cooperative gameplay design to it, because you played the game by yourself. It's just the afterwards you had to kind of think with other people, and that's what made it a cooperative experience. But by the other, like, you know, side of the coin, you kind of look at it, and there's some games that were purposely designed to be co-op, and now I kind of look at them and I would say they're bad games, kind of like Army of Two. I don't know what you think about Army of Two. I played it with you, and maybe it's just the fact that I'm looking at it through like a lens of how it is against other games now, but I felt like it was a poor cooperative experience, to be honest.
Okay, well, we actually jumped into a little too fast into bad co-op. Before we get to it, just to finish off, you know, Hideo Kojima, love the guy. He actually made a Death Stranding, which is another fun cooperative experience where like every game player's experience is separated from each other. And literally, like, as one person builds something in the world, Minecraft-y style, another player experiences, which I thought was kind of cool. And that's just the last thing I wanted to say. Like, you know, with co-op experiences where they aren't directly co-op experiences, but they do interact with each other. Just to close off on that. But now, since we're gonna jump straight into what bad co-op experiences. I mean, Army of Two again. You just mentioned it. You came in looking at a 2007 game with a 2019 type of mentality.
Yeah, I do want to say as a disclaimer that I did play this game with Jordan just last year. Obviously, that was already bordering on like 2 generations old, so I got that. But you know that's how I'm perceiving the game. Just so you guys know.
Yeah, and I think Army of Two for as good as it was as an experience in co-op, especially me looking at it through like hard eyes because I actually loved the game as one of the few Xbox games I had as a kid. It's a game where it incorporates a lot of the things I don't want in a co-op game per se, or like I don't mind it in a co-op game, but it should allow for more iteration. Many of the aspects of what makes Army of Two the game is what it is that they constantly throw enemies at you, and it's just you going through a shooting gallery experience, which a lot of people actually, you know, hey, that's why they call, you know, most shooters shooting galleries, because you just go in and shoot people and that's it. There's no actual oomph to the experience. There's no unique aspect that changes the shooting experience or make it challenging or whatever people want to call it. But Army of Two is one such game that did so for me. Now they did have some pretty unique co-op experiences where like if one guy goes shooting gallery mode, the other guy can go a bit more stealthy and approach enemies from a surprise type of a mode, like by flanking. They did have other mechanics, like pushing one guy up to a ledge, and then he having to carefully look above so he doesn't get his head shot off.
I feel like they had some pretty interesting ideas in Army of Two, which is, I want to give it its fair credit. I just want to say that, oh yeah, I played this whole game, it's trash, bleh. Like what you were saying, I like the fact that you can, help your partner up to different places. You could kind of do stuff like, you rip off car door, one of you acts like a shield while the other person shoots from over the shoulder or whatever. But a lot of the things they implemented, honestly, could have been done better. Where, like, I remember they had that mode where you would get back to back and then you would, shoot around in a circle. Like, it was kind of cool for what it was trying to do, but it felt like a very early 2000s movie type of deal. So, that was something that kind of dated kind of bad, because it really, that's not realistic at all. Honestly speaking, if you're surrounded like that by a bunch of dudes with guns, you're just going to die. The frame rate was obviously an issue for me because, obviously it's a split screen game on the PlayStation 3. What are we going to expect outside of a PowerPoint? But I saw where it was going with some of the things. Like, I like the aggro system. That was actually something that was kind of interesting from the game.
Right, exactly. That's the thing I was telling you about, where one person can flank while the other person goes all out, guns a-blazing. I personally like the game, but it also falls in line with my belief that, because it's the first of its iteration, it's not always going to hit the mark, and it's up to the developers to develop off that. But that also comes again to how it's perceived in the world, how well it does, and what the developers actually want. Army of Two, in my opinion, is victim to EA's corporate baloney, and you can see it in the second game where they literally didn't iterate much on the experience other than just make more levels in a co-op shooting gallery game.
Yeah, and then they take out like a lot of the mechanics that made the first one at least somewhat interesting to play through anyway. Like, I remember, I don't know if we only played the first one or the second one, but I remember, there was vehicle driving while another person shoots, which is obviously kind of basic. There was kind of a cool mission where you come down, like one of your partners is on a parachute, and then the other one has to shoot people or something like that. Obviously we mentioned the car door thing and all those sorts of different mechanics, which is pretty interesting. And I'm going to pass it off to you now in a second so you could just tell us a little bit more about the cooperative aspects of it. But I also kind of just wanted to point out real quick, another problematic part of that game to me was that it had very much the whole post 9/11 syndrome, where it was very like, oh, Middle Eastern bad, like it had the whole, like the guy, the main bad guy was like Abdul Sahim or whatever. I was like, oh, dude, this just, it's reeks of early 2000s, and it was kind of cheesy overall too. If you played it, you'll kind of know what I mean, especially if you look at it like nowadays.
Yeah, but okay, with that, in that remark, just to like lightly touch on it, it filled something that it wasn't really filled at the time in the gaming experience. So for it to be like its own unique experience to actually stand out with that regard, it's not that bad. Because one thing is to say, yeah, it's cheesy early 2000s movie, but then there's like 50,000 movies that are all cheesy like that. But then when you talk about games, there's only like really 2 or 3 that really hit the mark with that experience.
Yeah, but what I'm also trying to say, like, okay, so I'm not saying, obviously, that real life events do have implications and affect art in forms of, like, obviously 9/11 happened, and then a lot of action movies use that as like a fuel to include certain elements in their films. I get that, but I feel like it was specifically done poorly in Army of Two. Like, I think the writing for the narrative was pretty bad. Like Modern Warfare and stuff actually had a better element. I know that for a lot of it was the Russians and stuff, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, it did include a little bit of trouble in the Middle East and stuff. And Modern Warfare, I think, did it better as a narrative.
Yeah, you're kind of right in that, but I just want to point out that, in my opinion, the story, the overarching story, or the ancillary story of what's going on, like the overall quest or experience, is actually, it's not the best that it could be. But I did like the writing in terms of character development, like the way that Salem and Rios interact. That's also kind of cool how they kind of built a co-op persona. As you co-op players playing these two characters have known each other for years. They used to be in the military, and now they're just, mercenaries. And they, like, one guy's pretty big, so he plays on the scrawny guy, like, hey, stop being all edgy. And then the small guy's like, oh, you're too uptight. It kind of builds like a fun comic relief experience for the game, which I felt at least that was there, and it's deserving of that credit. Now, again, I was saying the biggest problem with Army of Two is that it is a victim of EA's baloney. So you can clearly tell in Army of Two, like Army of Two, I technically actually kept most of the things that made Army of One great. That streamlined it and made it a little bit easier to use. But it also shows that it didn't truly iterate. And Army of Two also goes back to what I was thinking about why Games of Service in the first episode is actually great, because Army of Two technically didn't feel like a sequel. It just felt like an expansion, like a full game expansion that was expanded to be a full game of the first game. It could have just been an extra campaign. It didn't really change any mechanics other than streamline them a bit. And I think that's also kind of what hurt Army of Two, is that they didn't get the same love that Dead Space did. They didn't get the same backing that Battlefield did. So they didn't have the same opportunities as those other developers within EA's library to really expand upon the Army of Two idea. I don't know if you want to say anything else about that, but I think that's my closing comment.
Well, yeah, I know that you titled this part in the guide here that it was supposed to be about bad games, but I don't even think we talked about good games and we talked about bad games, but I was actually setting up a dichotomy for how Hideo Kojima somehow managed to make a good cooperative experience without actually directly making a co-op game, and then something like Army of Two, which was directly supposed to be a phenomenal co-op experience, kind of ended up falling flat on its face. To myself, it's just, to me, that was an interesting idea to explore in how that could be possible. But I think ultimately we touched up on that quite a bit. Some of the things I think could have made Army of Two better: a stronger narrative. You know, obviously you could have the same themes that you wanted to include in the game, but actually appropriately write it. You know, give motivations to the characters that make sense, get better actors, because I feel like, you know, I don't want to hate on anyone specifically, but I personally didn't think that the acting and the material was the best. Now, could that be? I don't know if it's necessarily the actor's fault, because maybe the material wasn't there for them to really make anything out of it. But you know, to touch up on what you said about the two main characters' relationship, yeah, it's okay that they tried to kind of give them that whole friendship, brotherhood thing going on. But the big thing about narratives is that, yeah, you could try to force something, but you really want to try to present it in a way that's natural, so that we could be invested in these people, rather than, you know, a writer just trying to force us or pull the wool on our eyes and telling us that we need to be invested in these guys or like them. I don't feel like, you know, even though, yeah, they kind of hinted here and there what the guys were supposed to be like, that they really gave us enough material to truly understand what their you know, Salem and Rios, what Salem and Rios's motivations are, their personalities. It was just kind of more like, oh, hey man, I don't trust anybody, you know, I feel like we're getting set up. It's just like, nah man, you're too paranoid, man. And that was like the extent of it, which is just, you know, it's like a caricature instead of a character.
And I'm gonna go off on that right there. Just to add a little bit extra to this, right there. That just proves that Michael really didn't enjoy or capture what the narrative experience was. Their attitudes were quite deserving. They were both they both had PTSD practically from being in the army, which is again the whole point of the experience. They experienced the whole Middle Eastern battles, and then they came back a little broken. But Salem specifically, you know, he's a comic relief guy, but he's always like there's a literal cutscene where he's literally drunk and passed out, and he's literally like, he doesn't care about anything. He just wants to run in and gun. He doesn't care if he dies or not. And Rios is like much more centered and calm, and despite the fact that he knows, you know, what he can do as a military, a very accomplished military personnel, he acknowledges the threat of what they're going through, and they feel like, damn, we're getting set up, because it's like we're getting literally put on missions that are feeling more and more like suicide runs rather than legitimate mercenary missions, which again is literally how the story goes. Eventually they get tricked, spoiler alert, they get tricked, and they have to kind of put up with the fact that literally their own employers are working against them and using them to kind of be I think it was like a political movement where like the person that hired them was using them as scapegoats to promote some policies that he was trying to make with foreign policies or something, to build upon fighting against the Middle East or something like that. It was something like, you know, kind of like it was all for corporate and business and money and getting power within the government. But that's
Yeah, I think what they were trying to do was like they were kind of trying to privatize like the army or something. Like I think they were trying to show that the like the United States military was incompetent and that they should really go with the mercenary companies because they're so much better. And they were doing like a really convoluted plot to kind of try and set that up. But ultimately, yeah, you know, like I feel like the skeletons of like a story and characters were there, but ultimately the executions where it all fell apart. Because just as someone who was playing it and watching it, I ultimately didn't feel like it really presented itself to me that way. Like, yeah, sure, they tried to pass it off as if these guys had like PTSD and stuff, but ultimately it just didn't feel believable to me. Like they were just saying things without actually, you know, like making you feel that that's the truth.
All right, whatever. Let's just move on because we've been talking enough about Army of Two. I think it was a great game. I don't know about you. I know you kind of didn't have the same experience as I did. If we would have played it, if you would have played it with me as a kid, you might have enjoyed it a little bit more and have more fun memories. That's probably what it is. But
that's pretty fair. I think maybe to me, time just took its wear and tear on that game. Maybe I would have enjoyed it more in the past.
Right, but let's move on. Now I want to point out a specific game or franchise that I think encompasses what co-op is and doesn't have the complexities of a Destiny raid or puzzles like in Portal, and it's literally just a shooting gallery. But it really makes co-op what it is. It's the simple couch co-op. I'm gonna sit with my friends and just kill a bunch of bad dudes, and that's Borderlands. Borderlands is a game where like there's a lot of depth to it with the again with like the supers like in Destiny and the power-ups you get, and the vast majority of guns and the whole like you can give your friend a gun and you guys decide which loot to take and this and that. That game for me encompasses a good co-op experience. It's always fun to play and it goes again with like what makes a co-op game good. Because some games like Destiny, where they kind of push you to interact more with your partner in a sense, with its limited mechanics, in my opinion, because I would say something free would have, you know, warthogs, whatever. But point is, Borderlands kind of makes each player have their own siloed experience within the co-op experience, but still feel like working together. Because at the end of the day, a co-op experience is you feeling that you have that friend, that good friend of yours, that you guys are both together in this world, killing the bad guys, and that's for me.
That sounds a little threatening, man. you gotta tone it down a little bit there, man. He's like, oh, a co-op experience is just you having fun killing people, bro.
I didn't mean to put it like that, but what I'm trying to say is, you're
cooperating towards a you know, you're having fun with a buddy instead of you just playing a game by yourself and being immersed in a world and stuff. And you just kind of doing it by yourself, you're sharing that experience with someone else. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, but what I want to say too is that it immerses you in the world without having to do all the complex things that Portal or Destiny or Halo would do with like adding, you know, specific mechanics that really play off of one each other. I mean, the most amount of like player and activity you can do in Borderlands, I think, would be like some of the powers that you can kind of combine them together to make combos. And then like maybe some grenades or abilities to specifically help out other players. And then of course the vehicles. There's vehicles. There's like 3 or 4 vehicles in Borderlands, the franchise. I mean, maybe there may be more in Borderlands 3. I haven't played it yet, but there are some vehicles. But for the majority of the experience, it's really just like Destiny. It's just you running down specific open worldish areas and then corridors, and then just shooting enemies. Really, it's not. There's no complexity to it, but there's a co-op experience in there, and it's considered one of the best co-op games ever made because of what it does and how it does it so well that it gives you such creativity.
Well, I was gonna add to that because I feel like we're already starting to cover pretty much all our bases here in terms of like what we're talking about with co-op games and all that. Is that it's the fun that comes from Borderlands is, well, number one, even if it was just a single player game, the level of I guess customization that you get with your guns, like how there's like, I don't know, like nearly a limitless amount of guns that you could pick up or whatever. And then obviously there's the 4 different characters that you could play as, where each of them, you know, playing as each of them is basically a completely different experience depending on who you get. You know, I remember that Borderlands came out in a time when I was doing not financially too well. So I wasn't playing too many video games that were new back in the time. So my only limited experience was playing with you split screen on the PlayStation, which ties back to what we were saying, that the couch co-op really is something that I think should kind of try to be focused on again, because I feel like a lot of people could be missing out on those co-op experiences without that present. But also give the option for online, of course. But anyway, going back to what we were saying, I had like a love-hate thing going on with Borderlands, not necessarily because I think Borderlands is bad, but because of the fact that, playing it on the limited hardware split screen, it made it kind of a poor experience in terms of like frame rate and like, the more graphical stuff. But tying it back to what I was saying, it has all those different aspects that we were talking about earlier. It has a really good narrative. People tend to love the Borderlands narrative quite a bit. It had fun like enemies to fight against. You had different roles to play depending on which characters you chose, which is something that was really interesting too. So like you all had a specific thing that you were supposed to do when playing. Those were a lot of the elements I thought that kind of brought a lot of fun to it. And ultimately, I think that's something that's missing for the most part in a lot of co-op games that we have now. Definitely Call of Duty doesn't have something like that. Destiny kind of gets Destiny's pretty much on like the same path to being something like that. But I don't know, Borderlands did something maybe stylistically where it just feels like it got something right that most games of that sort are missing now.
And it's kind of hard to explain. I mean, what Borderlands did, and the reason why you don't feel the same, I guess, resentment towards it like you do towards Destiny, is because Destiny makes you feel like you're playing Halo. It does feel like it's Halo, and because you're a Halo fan, you're like, damn, I'm playing a half the experience. But Borderlands, because it's its own unique thing that separates itself from anything else, you're not really tying it into a previous experience. You're just like, oh, this is my one-off experience with this type of thing. But Destiny kind of molds together, the Halo and Borderlands-y experience with like fun loot and like, the social aspect of what Borderlands has was just a fun game where you just sit down on a couch and you just play with your friends and you shoot people. And that's what Destiny does as well. But the fact that you hate Destiny compared to Borderlands, despite the fact that they're both the same experience, which by the way, technically you don't really like Borderlands much, we're going to have to get into that again to see what it is. Destiny has the same experience. It's that same fun where you sit down with your friend, you just talk about your day. It's like, hey man, how was your day? I don't know, man. I'm just going to use my super and just kill all these enemies because I'm just butt mad at work or whatever it is. By the way, guys, butt mad. I just said butt mad. Yes, I am the 13-year-old gamer from the early 2010s.
Butt mad still hurt though. People still use it. It's still in.
Yeah, it's actually a funny thing with the word butt mad with my friends and I, because I had to we had to ban the word butt hurt due to a friend that had a poor experience with Cajun fries at one point, and we just can't say the word butt hurt anymore, so we're gonna use butt mad.
I don't think he cares about it anymore, but I'm not gonna put him on blast for that. I'm not naming names or whatever. But essentially, yeah, one of our friends had too many Cajun fries. Like he would kind of just eat them on the daily for way too long from Five Guys, and then he kind of got hemorrhoids or whatever. But I'm not gonna say what it is. We're just gonna leave it at that. I think honestly today we had a pretty good podcast, and we could obviously, there's still an infinite amount more things that we could talk about co-op games about. But you know how we are. We like to keep introducing new topics, kind of push our knowledge on things, and kind of have you guys interact with us while we do these things. So we're just gonna leave it at that for now.
Wait, are you sure we don't have at least another 5-10 minutes? Because I did want to cover PvP. We'll probably
we can have a PvP episode. That way we don't just shortchange it or whatever. Like last time, we'll do a proper PvP where we could talk about some cooperative aspects of PvP, which obviously go into talking about which games are good that do PvP, what could be better, we always want to keep these at the 2-hour marks for posting reasons. We don't want Buzzsprout only gives us the limited amount of hours, so we're gonna try and always fit it within the amount that we have. So something else that's new that we're going to be trying to do when we do these podcasts is ending it off on a note where we'll do our plugin. So if you guys want to support us in any way that you can, you can do so outside of just listening to us. So I'll start with mine. Jordan will follow up with his. My name is Michael C. Moore. That's sorry. Blah, blah, blah. Let me try that again. It was Michael space C space Moor. I can spell. I barely know how to spell my own name. Let's go. You can follow me on pretty much every platform. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. I do have my own Twitch account, by the way. If you want to see me play some games, you can follow me there. I also have my own Discord that you can check out, and I also have my own Patreon and merch store you can check out as well. Then Jordan's gonna go ahead and let you know where you can follow him as well.
Right, I'm not as varied in platforms as Michael just yet.
Also follow me on TikTok.
But if you guys want to follow more of my ideas, or you feel like you resonate more with some of the opinions I bring to the table, you can follow me on Twitter at JG _ Mark1. That's JG _ MARC1 for Twitter. I'm also a blogger at thepositiveplayer.com. There I talk a bit more about my personal experiences with my never-ending backlog of games that I probably will never finish, and of course my experience with gaming as time goes on. Other than that, you can always find me here on the Co-op Syndicate, live on Twitch or on YouTube, recorded.
Yeah, so I was going to go ahead and follow up with that and just let you guys know that in case you'd like to see us live when we're recording these episodes, go ahead and consider giving us a follow at www.twitch.tv/co-op-syndicate. That's COOPSYNDICATE. Right now, our goal is to get to 50 followers so we could get affiliate status on there so that we can start bringing in additional revenue to support the podcast via subscriptions and stuff. So please go ahead and give us a follow there if you can. Additionally, you could support us right now by pledging to our Patreon that you can find at www.patreon.com/co-op syndicate. We do offer a bunch of different tiers there that give you different rewards for the level of support that you'd like to show us. So consider checking that out as well. You could, let me go ahead and put it up on the screen here for you guys to see in case you're interested. You know, here's some of the stuff you get. You get to see our episodes released early and stuff like that. And we offer tons of different things such as gift cards and, I didn't even put it on screen because I'm bad. Look, let me do a transition here. Now you guys can see it.
We're still learning. We're still learning all the kinks.
Yeah, so we're ironing this stuff out, but as you can see, you know, you get some early episodes and stuff like that, and you could see all the different tiers that you get and all that. You could just check it out by following the link that I told you guys. In the event that you just like to not even subscribe, maybe you just like to make a one-time tip, feel free to go to streamelements.com/co-op-syndicate/tip. You could go ahead and give us a one-time donation there to support as well in case you want to avoid any subscriptions. You could also look up our Discord, which we have in the description down below and the About Me section on Twitch. And if you'd like to follow us on YouTube, we're also the Co-op Syndicate there as well. If you'd like to support us by buying some fresh merch and look good while doing it, consider going to merch.streamelements.com/co-op syndicate. We have hoodies, we have cell phone cases, we have mouse pads, mugs, all the things. Go ahead, check that out. And we'd really appreciate it if you buy the merch. And, you know, if you do end up getting something, give us feedback. Maybe you'd like to see a certain design, or you'd like to suggest something to improve the merchandise. You know, let us know what you think about it. Ooh la la perks, you got it, Crisper Mamba. You just came as we were signing off right now.
Yeah, and thanks for anyone who made it today. We really appreciate you guys viewing with us, interacting with us. As we grow, obviously, we want to make this a community where we can all bounce off each other's ideas and really bring everyone to the table. We're doing this right now where we're professing our opinions, but of course, in the future, we also would like to share our viewers and followers and their opinions on the topics we talk about. But until next time,
I've been your co-host, Michael C. Moore.
And I'm your other co-host, Jordan G. Marcos.
And this has been the Co-op Syndicate. Thank you guys so much, and have a wonderful day. Peace.